Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning into the Mental Health at Home series. This is a partnership between the Juneau Suicide Prevention Coalition and NAMI Juneau. And we want to bring you all information about mental illness and recovery and what that looks like. Topics that are relative both now during our COVID quarantine times, but also just in general. Like, what are some symptoms of different mental illnesses? What can you do about them? And in this series, we're joined by a lot of esteemed local therapists, none more so than Kathryn Bullock of Juneau Youth Services, who has extensive experience working with youth. And today we're going to talk about depression. So Kathryn, thanks for being here. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. So depression, what is it? What does it look like now when everyone's bummed out about something very real anyway? Like, how do you know if you're depressed versus sad that life is boring? Talk me through that, please.
Yeah, I think, in preparation for this, I was realizing that a lot of the kind of typical symptoms we would look at as a therapist for depression, I think just a lot of the general population is exhibiting those right now, right? Isolating, being withdrawn, changes in sleep patterns. And so it's kind of a fine line, paying close attention to what is depression and what is just each of us coping with the unique situation of COVID right now. And so I think generally speaking, and not a pandemic, you would kind of look at, whether someone was isolating, what their sleep schedule was their appetite changing, were they having, difficulty making decisions, being really indecisive, flat affect, not caring as much about typical things that normally they would care about. So those are some of the real big things I think I specifically look forward to as a therapist when I'm dealing with depression.
And so if a young person, if a 13-year-old is sleeping a lot, they're on the couch, and maybe normally they're more active, how can we get to whether that's just because of the circumstances or if there is a mental health cause behind that?
Yeah, so I think right now I would encourage parents, if they had a 13-year-old at home exhibiting those signs, to kind of talk with that 13-year-old, try to, I'm really big on having parents make schedules for their kids, even though they're not in school, sticking to some kind of a norm. And I think if they're doing that in the home and the child is still presenting with those symptoms, then I would take a little bit closer look at, was this actually depression?
Okay, so you provide some additional structure to simulate normal pre-COVID life,
yeah,
and see to what extent there's deviation from that.
Mm-hmm.
Great. And does depression exist at all ages? Is it something only for teenagers and adults? Can a 6-year-old show signs of depression?
Yeah, I think anybody can. And I think anybody can, especially right now, because it just is so abnormal of a time for everybody.
Mm-hmm. And does it look different if it's a young kid versus older youth?
I don't think so. I think in my experience working, I have youth of all ages that I work with. I think you probably just need to pay a little bit closer attention, I would say, to the younger kids exhibiting those signs, because they might not be able to articulate to you in a conversation, oh, I'm just feeling really down, or withdrawn or detached. So it just might kind of present in a little bit slower fashion depending on the age, but not always.
Okay. And one of those signs that you mentioned in particular, flat affect. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Give us an example.
Yeah, so I think in my line of work with youth, flat affect is just, not smiling or expressing, visual like sadness or anger, and just kind of blank, nothing there. So you might see that in play therapy when you're playing and you might get normally like a smile or a chuckle or something, and it's just kind of nonchalant facial expression, like doesn't matter, doesn't care, just kind of detached from normal expression.
And so then it detached from normal expression. So does it work the opposite? Like maybe normally I would scream and yell if I lose a game, but I'm not reacting at all negatively either. Is that also a sign of flat affect?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Great. And can you go again through the other warning signs or things to look out for of depression?
Yeah, so isolating, which is definitely hard to draw out right now, because we all are doing that in some manner. Sleep changes, not sleeping or oversleeping, not following sleep routine, appetite changes, and that could go either way, right? Not eating or eating too much, or indulging in foods that typically the person doesn't indulge in. Difficulty making decisions, being really indecisive with choices, being withdrawn from daily life, and then not particularly caring about anything.
And the withdrawn, that seems like another one that you can kind of test out. Like right now, it's easy to be withdrawn if there's nothing in front of you to engage with.
Right.
So my hunch then, tell me if I'm wrong, is that you kind of give somebody, to test that, you need to give somebody the opportunity to engage to see whether they are engaging. So would that be like offer to play a game, and if the person says no, like maybe that's being withdrawn? Or how do we test out somebody being withdrawn?
Yeah, I think it would be important to invite that person to do something that they typically would have enjoyed, and enjoyed, I would say, before COVID, because that's, kind of the difficulty in the time we're in. But let's say, a little guy, 10, likes to go on walks, down to the pond. And if you ask, hey, let's go on a walk after dinner to the pond, and there's no reaction or no desire to do it, then I would take a look at, okay, are we withdrawing, or is this just normal for the time we're in?
Okay. And is there any kind of standardized tool? Like, can people use the PHQ-9, for example, the depression scale at home, if they think that maybe these signs are present?
I think you could. I think you don't need to necessarily. But I think if somebody felt like I just needed, proof or a tool to hold on to, then absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So a tool exists, but you think that like if people are noticing these changes, then they're probably right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Folks know their kids.
Yep.
They can trust their gut and say like, this is different than normal.
Yeah. Right. I think trusting your gut is a good way to go on this.
Great. And so then let's say I'm a parent and I say like, yeah, my 12-year-old definitely is showing some of the signs that Kathryn talked about in that super helpful video. What then? What can I do with my kid? Do I get professional help immediately? Is there stuff I can do on my own? What do you recommend?
I recommend both. There's absolutely things you can do at home. And I would say, if things aren't working at home, then definitely seek professional help. Some of the things that I encourage families I work with to do at home, as basic as it sounds with depression, the biggest cures for it, right, are going to be, a good sleep schedule, getting exercise. Those are huge factors in depression. So that goes back, in the beginning, to a sleep schedule, a routine, kind of sticking to all of that. Get outside, spend time doing what you enjoy doing, fun activities. And as a parent, even if the kid doesn't want to, make them do it. Make them go do something they used to enjoy, because sometimes just that change in, a lower mood is enough to help kind of come back and not be as withdrawn from daily life. So I think that can be really impactful. And then, yeah, if that doesn't seem to be working, then absolutely, I would recommend going to a professional and getting help.
And so it sounds like forced fun is one of the fixes for depression. That doesn't sound awful.
I think so.
Yeah.
That's my approach.
Yeah, great. Let's talk about schedules a little bit more. You've mentioned them a couple times. You mentioned earlier that you really recommend them. Sleep schedule, exercise is obviously easier to work in if you have it in a schedule. Like, what does a schedule look like? Is every minute of every day accounted for in a schedule? Is it just a couple activities? How thorough does it need to be? What do you recommend?
I think thorough depends on the home structure, and what that looks like for the family, especially, in the COVID era. And, but I think just kind of a general idea, kids are so used to a routine with, I get up and I go to school and I'm at school and I follow this routine, and after school I do this, and then I have dinner and I go to bed. And so some structure of periods of time throughout the day that they know, kind of predictability, what to expect in that day, when to expect it, I think can just bring a lot of calmness, especially in a unique time, but also especially when you're just feeling like I have no energy to do even the simple tasks.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned sleep schedules a couple times. So it kind of seems like when you sleep doesn't matter right now, because You don't have to be at school at a particular time in the morning. Why is sleep schedule still important?
I think just making sure, one, that kids are getting enough sleep. But then also, it goes on the other side where if they're sleeping too much and they're dealing with depressive symptoms, that's not helpful either. Because then they're just even more lethargic throughout the day. So I think sticking to just a somewhat normal, maybe they stay up later and sleep in a little bit longer, but keeping some kind of healthy routine for sleep and structure, so it isn't, just video games until 3 a.m. when I fall asleep, and then I sleep my day away and I start my day in the afternoon. I think just playing back into that routine with it.
And let's say a parent has noticed, I'm a parent, I've got an 8-year-old, I've tried to do some of these things, I'm trying to force fun, I'm trying to have a sleep schedule, have a routine during the day, and it just doesn't seem to be doing the trick. And so I give you a call. I call Juneau Youth Services. We have you as our therapist. What's going to happen in professional treatment for depression with an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old?
Right. So you would if you came in to see me, I would do an assessment, and we'll just go with that. I gave the depression diagnosis. I would spend a few sessions kind of building a rapport and a relationship with the client. And then, doing a lot of talk therapy, play therapy, getting outside, getting to the root of where that depression came from or stemmed from, and talking about it. And then I honestly would play back onto, building skills to cope with it and manage it. Okay, I'm having an off day, and develop skills with the client and the family on this is what the client needs when they're having an off day.
So you would give a lot of the same advice, just maybe more personalized and specific to the family of other things to do in the kids' normal day-to-day life to help manage support.
Yes.
Great. What else should people know about depression in youth?
I think that's about it.
We covered everything?
I think so. It's different for everybody, but I think, the big thing I would say is help is available. So
great. Thanks, Kathryn. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron.
Thanks, everyone, for listening. Our information about these videos are posted on the NAMI website, and they're on the NAMI and Juneau Suicide Prevention Coalition social media accounts. And for anyone who's in a current crisis situation, we just want to keep beating this drum as much as possible. The Alaska Care Line is available, 877-266-HELP, and you can also text 741-741. And remember, even though we're all at a distance, we can stay connected with helpful professionals like Kathryn and other schlubs in the community like myself. So, Kathryn, thanks a bunch. We appreciate your time.
Thank you. Bye.